Francis Presley, thank you very much, and I'm delighted to be here in your beautiful studio in Drumcliff.
Yes, yeah.
In County Sligo on this glorious summer day.
Absolutely.
Perfect, surrounded by all this history, which we'll talk about a bit later. But first, you've been changing in your artwork. I've known you a long time, and you've always been a very kind of, well, like myself, a very kind of transitioning artist, and that you move from one thing up to the other all the time, depending on the stage in your life or moods and so on. And right now you're involved in the loom. Could you tell us what brought you to this? What kind of ancient signals or codes may have actually taken you to this work? And please describe your work for us. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I draw a lot of my creativity from very interesting people that I meet. And this particular loom originated out of someone showing me some remains that they found in Denmark of a Neolithic woman buried in a bog. And she had this kind of simple clothing, which is here. Similar, you'd like, but this is similar, but that was it. And so I thought, well, that's really interesting. I found that very interesting. And at the same time, I was dismantling a piano. And I realised that the piano not only had a wealth of wood in it, but it actually had a framework and a structure to it, and especially the keys. All of these, which is where the actual piano keys would be sitting on. And it had all the string holes, and all this was all marked out, and I thought, well, this would be a fantastic loom. And I'd never made anything on a loom before, and YouTube, as we know, is a fantastic resource for finding things. So I saw some basic loom building, basic loom work, and so I thought, well, I'll build this up. And this is the front parts of the piano here. This is where the keys used to be. I put some nails in, and I then got this string from the local hardware store, and strung it up in a big 4-foot, like the full width like that, and made myself a needle, which is this one here, which is also 2 piano pieces, which is the kind of the hammer bits on the piano, and glued those pieces in, and then I actually had a kind of a bobbin that would flow through, and it's a bit like weaving willow. So you're going in and out, and there's an awful, like you look at it and think, oh, there's a lot of work in it, but it's actually a meditation. A very healing meditation. And so I started making these, and this is all made from just ordinary string stuff. And I made the skirt to start with, and then I made the top, and then I was pruning apple trees because I had this little orchard where I make cider, and I realised that apple wood is probably the #1 wood for building structures, because it has right angles and twists and curves like no other timber. Most things are quite linear or they're gently curved. But these things have strange angles coming off, and I thought, well, that would be a perfect armature to build around. So and I thought, well, now I've got the clothes, I should build the person to go around it. So with the willow, I had a stock of willow, which I use a lot of. I built this armature up, and I built the woman, and then I had the clothes made for her. And the next thing I got involved with was using deer skin. And this is a deer hide. I think this is a Galway deer. And I was looking for a hat at the time. So I just got some simple hat, and I basically had a strip, and I sewed it round, and I put this bit on top, and these are the soft bits, I think near the ears. And then I got that. This is actually a polystyrene head. And but basically made that, and then started dressing her up with it. And then after that, I then thought, well, I got some other string. Somebody gave me a load of string. I think there's about 1 kilometre in here of actual string. And so I started weaving, it was just this section all the way along. And it's kind of a tricky thing because it tends to go in a bit, and it's all about tension. If you read about it, you have to be very gentle with this to keep it straight. But nonetheless, these curves created this weird shape, and in the process of building it, I didn't know what it was I was building. It didn't really matter. It was the process of actually building it I found interesting. And so eventually I got it off the loom and went to YouTube again, and they told me how to tie off, which is interesting, picking up stitches, probably knitting. A lot of people would know this. And then I thought, well, it needed a strap. So I made a strap like that. And because this has to be tied off up here with knots, this is why all these are on here. It's very simple stuff, and like I know, I'm trying to inspire people to think, well, I would like to do that. And there's many people out there that could show you how to do this really neatly and professionally. But as an amateur, I've never done it in my life, and I've made myself a bag.
So, a piano rack.
Yes.
was re-technology backwards
Yes.
to an ancient loom.
Yes.
And it also makes you think of those, you know, those old-fashioned box harps.
Yes.
You wonder if that was actually a development of that. Someone was plucking the wires, the rope on a loom one day.
Absolutely, they could have been using gut. They might have thought that maybe gut was a good thing to use. Or I don't know, you know, for something a bit more stronger. But absolutely. And I think that they would have used probably hemp or nettles to process that for this kind of cordage. But this is easy, you know, easy gotten. It's on a lovely roll. So that basically moved me towards building the loom, and one aspect.
What I love is that you've taken that ancient design, which they, you know, you're brought up in school to believe it's rustic. It'll be brown or black or green like a nettle or something. But we know now that people way back, even Mesolithic times, had colour dyes and pigments.
They did.
So they would have been blinged up like the one that's currently being made, the pink and the yellow and the blue in there.
Yes.
So you know, a lot of the colour of our ancient ancestors has been lost because we associate them with stones. But when you go to like the National Museum of Dublin, you see all incredible gold and bronze work, and you say, oh my God, these people were definitely
they're very
they were blinged up big time. And if they had that in gold, they had it in textiles and woodworking and everything else.
Yeah.
But you say it's like meditative. You know, there's almost an energy there. You wonder how old that piano was, who played it, what kind of... You know, you think like someone's playing Mozart on that, and then you're sort of like weaving on it. It's a continuum. It's a continuum.
Absolutely. This this piano actually came from Dublin, from a very musical house, and it was something like a John William something Broadwood, and I would say it's probably 1915, 1920. I'm only guessing, but the actual veneer on it was a fake veneer. It was done with paint, so it looks like a veneer, but it's a very thin veneer. But the piano definitely had been played a lot, because also from the piano I made various instruments from it as well, which I'll show you next. And so it's almost like you're connecting with something that's sort of like some kind of ancestral thing. It's living in it.
Continuing a tradition.
Yes.
But you're also reimagining it too.
And then the meditative, like the endless streaming of the string. There's no end to it. You know, you just keep winding it on, and you keep going and keep going. And it's like weaving willow. Like once you start, you can't really stop. You sort of say, well, I just put another couple more rods in, and another couple more. And it's slowly but surely, this whole thing suddenly builds up. And it's irresistible, it's addictive. You actually like doing it. And even though it takes so long to do it, it's very, very rewarding, because it stops the mind from thinking too much. It kind of levels it out.
So Francis, you're also a musician, and we played together many times over the years, but you also build and invent musical instruments. So you turn musical instruments into looms,
yes,
and then you also create new musical instruments as well. Now, this drum kit, I've played it myself there many times, and it's just amazing. And could you tell us about the drum kit and the other instruments you have around you?
Well, the actual drum kit started off life was I was coming from the kind of the normal way we think about a drum kit is we'd have to be there with something boring out the middle of it, hacking away, you know, sort of burning it out like native people would. And I wanted to build a wooden drum kit as a part of a kind of a display for my woodcraft work. And a particular man said to me, there's a sycamore tree over the back there, would you please remove it, it's rotten. And it was rotten, and I realised it was hollow, and it was perfectly hollow basically. So I basically cut them into roundels like this, and I didn't really have to do much at all inside because it was all rotten wood. So basically I had drums already made then, and they were just simple roundels that were made. And I was doing a garden for somebody, and there was a sycamore tree in the garden which had been cut multiple times and was clearly got on everybody's nerves, including his. And he said, just remove that please while you're at it, because that. But I realised that it had all the right fixtures to attach things to. And so these kind of parts are all coming together. And then I thought, well, I need to get some skins on the drum kit, and that's actually quite complicated because you have to make metal rings. But in the first instance I thought, well, I don't actually have to make a proper, you know, top of the range drum kit here. I just want to, you know, experiment and see what comes out of it. So I bought some ordinary car chamois leather from your local supermarket, And I wedged it in. I drove it in like the Africans did, and I just sort of drove these pegs in the side and tensioned it. And it kind of worked fairly well. And but then a little bit later on, I then managed to make these metal hoops that go on here. And I sewed these on, which is how they're traditionally done, really. And I updated it by putting these metal things in here, which means it's all very adjustable. And it sounds great. I could say that I'm not really the best of drummers. Tom, I know you're a good drummer. And but it's been in storage. I brought it out, and it's actually getting tighter and tighter as the time comes here. There's a...
It sounds great in here with the acoustics. That's the best I've ever heard it. The high ceiling helps it. It really does sound like a tom when you hit those. It doesn't. You think it's going to sound like a bongo, but it does sound like a tom.
And I think that because it's a living entity, really. Although it's a dead tree, it still is carrying its life.
Yeah.
That it had, and so I basically made this thing up out of that, and then. I then moved on to other things after that. Well, once I had the drum kits, this is quite old now, I've had this for quite a while. But with the piano, I then had a piece of wood that came in off the... this isn't actually a piano gill, this one. I'll talk about this one, which is quite interesting, because it kind of relates to this. Is that this was a piece of driftwood that got washed up in the harbour in Rathcormac here, and it's a piece of... Oregon pine, I think. It's very, very tight growth rings. It's almost like amber. It's so hard and very, very brittle. And
beautiful grain on it.
Yeah, beautiful grain, and like it's cut one way this way and it's cut that way. So it's kind of unconventional. You know, everybody would expect the grain to be going this way. But so I built this thing up, and I thought, well, the best instrument I'd ever heard, which cannot play, which I wish I'd actually learned to play, was a fiddle. And I realised that the fiddle, Stradivarius, he actually must have had some kind of, cosmic enlightenment to realise that this was the form, the shape, the ultimate form that could create a beautiful curvature of sound. And I thought, I'll make a fiddle and I'll put a ukulele neck on it. And this particular neck is kind of a part thing, because I was a little bit shy at the time to build an instrument properly. I bought a maple neck from China, and but I thought, well, the maple neck's not going to be strong enough to string bronze strings on, so I cut the neck in half. And it just so happened at this particular time that there was an ash tree that fell down over the back of my house, and it was on the ground for like 5, 6, 7 years.
It's almost like those trees give themselves to you.
Absolutely. And I cleft it with my splitter at home, and it came out as a dog leg. And the dog leg was perfect for giving me the tilt on the top of the neck. So I inserted this piece of cleft ash, which is black, which is said probably the tree would have been 300, 250 years old. And I thought, great, I'll incorporate that in there. And then about a few yees later, the beech tree that was growing next to it, which was equally as large, blew over in one of the storms. And I took some of the beech, I cut it up for the farm, and I said, I'd like to take a few pieces. He said, oh, you're going to walk away. And so I then put a piece of beech in the back here. And I really do believe that they both grew together, and they would have experienced so much in Ireland for the past 250 years that the thing is actually alive. I think the wood is alive. You can.
How is it tuned? Is it tuned?
It's tuned in DA.
So it's there, like Irish music.
Yes.
Can I have a quick go there?
You can. Yeah.
I'll edit this out if it sounds bad.
There's an amplifier there if you need one. Lovely resonance, and then there's another one here moving on from that one, which is actually made of a piano. This one's got a piano soundboard, and if you actually play that one, that sounds totally different again. sustain.
Rich. And it's the same size. It's remarkable how you get that from the same size.
Yeah, and this particular part, this is the soundboard that came out of the Broadwood piano. This one here, and it's very thick, so it sort of goes against all the conventional thoughts of having a very sort of, the sort of fairly thin soundboard. It's actually quite thick, and these are all parts of the piano where the music stand would go, etc. I've used that, and this piece on here is actually I think it's 1760, somebody can correct me. It's a piano forte, a John Broadwood piano forte, which is a rectangular piano that had like 1mm rosewood veneer. All my guitars have it on. It's such a beautiful veneer. And the back of it's actually made of, as far as I know, it's an abichi, which is an African kind of cheap packing case wood, but it's completely knot-free, and it's very, very light, and has a beautiful resonance qualities to it.
And that's why that one's, the one you're holding there, sounds more European, where that one has a kind of a hillbilly, Appalachian, American, bluegrassy kind of vibe.
Yeah, and plugged in they sound amazing. You can put a 100-watt amplifier through it and have no feedback.
Okay, you can hear a bass in this too, you can feel the bass in it.
And a bit kind of, that kind of gothic with, medieval sound to it.
Yeah.
And then, just to recycle it, I then, from the inside of that one, which is that piece, I think it was similar to that, but basically the inside of it.
Oh, yeah, the guts of it.
Yes, I then made another one, which is a smaller one. Oh, sorry, there's another one here, which is a smaller one.
Wow, almost like Russian dolls.
Yeah. So nothing was kind of wasted. And but in these later guitars, I must admit, I use a bit of technology. I've got two carbon fibre rods in the neck, which basically mean that it can't really ever move again. So they're dead straight. Yeah. That one there. You might need tuning that one, I'm not sure, but check it.
That's more Irish sounding. That's very Irish sounding. Yeah. So you have like the Appalachians, Italy in the 1400s, and the West
Absolutely. Plus, this one could double up as an oar if you're ever lost. It's a multi-purpose kind of. I like the thing about that. And and now there's a cello, which is also made of the piano, but this one's slightly different because in this one here, this actually sounds really lovely. It's just.
I haven't seen this one before.
You haven't seen this one?
I can't play the cello, so you'll have to do this one.
I'll just give it a run through. But this is the back. These are the boards on the piano again. This is a piece of Douglas, which comes from Sligo here in the area.
And very stylish compared to the two.
Yes, well it's actually inverted. I sort of thought I'd make a cello back to front. So it's kind of everything is back to front on it. The curvatures kind of represent the standard cello except back to front. And then I made the neck out of a window frame, one of these kind of teak window frames, and I put some ash in the middle of this one. So, and it has a sycamore fretboard with a juniper berry bridge, and there's a nut and a sycamore bridge. And this one sounds actually rather nice plugged in, although I don't really play it that much, but it sounds lovely.
There's beautiful overtones in that. You can hear this almost like the sympathetic ringing on the strings. And what is the body of that made from again?
It's Douglas fir, and the front of it I don't know. It could easily be a beachy packing case wood because it was very popular.
Amazing that you got that sound out of Douglas fir. I mean, because it's a very condensed wood.
Yes,
it's not like sycamore. At least is sinuous. You can see.
Yeah.
Sound travels.
Oh,
and that's. Have you had any classical people in here playing this?
Not yet. It's been played several times. I have recordings of it at home.
It's been built before during the lockdown, so there's no tourists or
nothing. So it's coming along that way. And this is the last guitar I made, which was the other day, which is a kind of. This one actually had a strange life because it started off as a one-piece cedarwood guitar, which the cedar comes from Sligo. I made the neck and it was all in one piece. And I hung it in the kitchen, and it was hanging on my kind of leather thing, and it slipped. And I was watching it, and it came down to the ground and shattered. But the bridge sort of was still there, the strings were still on it, and I looked at it and I thought, well, That's clearly not the way it's supposed to be going, and so I made another one, but I made a larger version of this.
Right.
And I cut the neck off and then applied it to that, and then got it all together, and it still didn't sound kind of right. And then the other day I thought, well, I'm going to have another go at it. So I cut the neck off it again, or took the neck off. I actually cut it off. No, it was screwed on, that's right. I took it off, and then with the piano legs, for the remainder of this piano, which I've been going at, which has got beautiful tight grain in here, I made this solid body guitar, and I thought, well, I could do with something that's kind of a bit more compact, so I can, and I put a kind of a Telecaster pickup here, and this is a kind of a Korean Strat-like guitar pickup, so they're sort of wired in series, and it's kind of a soft bluesy sound guitar. And so anyway, that one, and
is that regular tuning?
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit of volume for that if you'd like.
Did not sound like I expected it to sound.
No, you thought it might be dirty.
No, I expected it to sound kind of like thinny, but it's not. It's kind of jazzy.
It's jazz. Yeah, it's very jazzy and warm. But like I thought, well, if you have that to start with, you can always put an effects pedal on it and make it a bit more bouncy and lively if one needed to. Next thing is also, which is kind of interesting, is that I make bows.
Return to the native.
Yes, return to the native. And this particular bow, I made this probably 10 years ago, and maybe longer. I can't remember. I gave it to my niece. And
well, that's a classic English longbow.
It is, in a sense, it is.
Yeah.
And it was made from a piece of ashwood. And I actually have a piece of wood shaped like that. You take a triangular wedge, and you try to keep the cadmium layer on the outside. So you have a kind of a triangle, and then once you've got that part of it, you can then, in fact, I'll just string it. You can see
the longbow was like a ferocious weapon.
Oh, completely.
Henry V in England ordered every boy in England and Wales to practice bow every Sunday after church. And that's why when they got to Agincourt and they faced the French, you had like people who had been firing bows since they were little kids.
Absolutely.
And I think like in literally 5 minutes the entire French aristocratic class was wiped out.
I know.
They would fire them in like carpet bombing.
It must have been horrible.
Terrifying.
Terrifying.
1,000 arrows. And they would put the arrows on the ground, urinate on them, so it'd be a bioweapon as well.
Absolutely.
So you've died of infection. So it was incredible, like the warfare they had back then.
Yes. Yes.
It was very meaty.
Yes. I like to see this more like this would be a perfect thing for shooting small food, rabbits, hares, birds. You could be quite definite and accurate with them. And to make that bow, the tools, which is basically like I'd like to talk about some of the other things I make here, but as we go through it. But an arrow, for example, there's a few arrows here. I've made a new one recently, but I think one of these, I don't think it's that one. One of these is made out of ash, I'm pretty certain. That feels like that's a good weight, I say that is ash. So, but ash arrows were what they used mainly for warfare because they were really heavy and they come down at a hell of a velocity, with the tips on the end of them. But you can make, I made these nuts out of a bit of antler horn, knocks out of a piece of antler horn. And these you could get from your goose, or probably a crow feather even if you were desperate for it. But yeah. So, but what I do nowadays is I actually get hazel sticks, and so like my recent ones, I've been visiting China again as I do at times, and I bought some flights, and these are just plastic flights, but these are actually hazel sticks. There's one beautiful hazel stick here. And that they actually take on a beautiful varnish. Lovely. It's just amazing. So, but these sticks, you actually cut them and you select them, like I've done here, and the different kind of it's very easy to cut them too large because the light of the arrow, like this is only a 27-inch arrow length. It's very short, you know, it's way too short for me, but relatively speaking it's fine. And so the size of the arrow is very important to the size of the bow. So this will do 120 yards, and on the back of it, there's only, on the points, I'm just using a piece of copper that I got from a recycled caravan. And they're really stub-ended, there's nothing serious about it. And but they were perfect for doing field shooting, for doing clout shooting. So you can put like a little target over in the field, and you can just have that wonderful feeling of actually loosing an arrow, and it's almost like everything that you don't really want with you just flies off with the arrow.
I find shooting at bows tremendous fun. There's something, it's got that same thing as chopping wood. If you're in a bad mood, there's something about the sound of that arrow and seeing it go into the distance.
Absolutely, and
it's like it's taking your troubles with you.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And then there's a kind of the feeling of focus as well. You take the focus and you see them go. So these are fairly new, these sticks I have here. But what I'll do with these is I'll put these up above the fireplace, and I'll then pull them down occasionally, and I'll pull them out. I'll pull one out. That one's. And don't be put off by the fact that they look twisted, because it makes no difference. You can basically just have it in there, and you can look down and you think, oh Jesus, that's really bent. But if you actually just nice and gently twitch it around the place, you know, and you can put it back up there again, and you can just do this. You can just carry on with them. So eventually you're actually prepping these lovely sticks. That's all they were, and I had loads of sticks like that. And if they don't actually work out as arrows, you have wonderful little frameworks for building something. If you're doing some wood chairs or a little basket or something, these are wonderful little things that they can bend in, and then you can weave in between them. So they're not throwaway at all. You're just sort of working your way through what's the best. So I'd like to give an introduction to some of the tools that I use. In fact, these would be the tools that you would need if you wanted to make anything that I make. These are the tools. This is a small draw knife, which is ideal for doing small paring work, but if you're trying to cut something like an inch in diameter or more, you need something of this size. I've had this for like 20 years, I don't know how many years I've had it.
Well, that's a very ancient tool. I was at the Viking boatyard in Roskilde in Denmark, and that was actually the main
tool
thing they used. Yeah,
that is it. And with that you can build a longbow, no problem, or any type of bow. That is one of the most important tools to get. If you ever see one and you're interested, that's what you should have. And then that's two fantastic tools. And the small one somebody recently gave me, and it's beautiful because it's very deft, it's small. The other thing I'd recommend for someone doing woodcraft stuff is a lovely knife. This is a Norwegian knife, and it's got a superb grip on it. It really fits the hand perfectly well, like that. And the actual profile of say a craft knife is very important, because if it's kind of stubby here but then comes in kind of sharpish, it's very controllable. So if I wanted to manage, let's say, this little bit of stick here,
ambidextrous.
Yeah, you've got this, and you've got the beautiful thumb piece here. You can see my thumb goes on there, and what I can do with that is I can whittle like this. I have total control. There's none of this going on at all. It's all just done, and I can do all of this just like that, and I've got so much torque with my thumb on this part here, and the shape of the blade is perfect, and the grip perfect. So a good knife like that is, really an absolute number one to get. This is a Norwegian knife. That is a beautiful holster on it. It works absolutely fantastic.
Is the handle antler or wood?
It's curly birch, and they would have cut that during a moon cycle, a special moonwood. They're very much into their timber cutting over there, and it's a beautiful. I have abused it, but I've used it a lot, and it still goes well. It's a triple laminate stainless. Another thing which is really useful, which is very handy for me because I harvest a lot of hazel sticks for roundhouses or whatever I might be building, is this is probably not supposed to mention names on YouTube, but anyway, people might know, but it's a good quality Japanese blade.
Oh, they are superb.
They are superb. Yeah. And with respect, I broke the end off it there. A little bit careless, but very, very beautiful sword to have.
I've torn through 10-inch ash, damp ash with one of them.
Yeah.
No problem.
No problem. Yeah. And what's lovely about it is you can carry it on your pocket, and if you're working, you need a vise. That's one other thing I use an old vise that's really slack and not really much use is perfect for doing woodcraft, because you can spin it open quickly. You don't need precision engineering jaws on a vise. That's a number one to have. Or you could use an ordinary saw out of the kit. I mean, I believe I have really good quality.
What I like about that one is the serrations on it are not too wide apart, so it doesn't jam as easy as a regular wood saw.
Yeah, it's designed.
It's much better than a pruning saw.
Yes. And I've had the larger versions of them, but for what I do, that's perfect. I use that. The other thing I'd really recommend is a decent pair of secateurs. There's many of these on the market, but I think everybody knows probably what the best model is. And I would say that it's unbreakable. And it's a good thing about it is that would cut probably an inch if you were, careful with it without abuse. It would get you out of any problem, and it could even cut paper, and it's very easily to sharpen. I use sharpening with the Dremel, which is another fantastic tool.
Well, they're a good investment for both bushcraft and woodworking.
Oh yeah, and for cutting willow, everything. Pruning up sticks, the whole lot. Really number one, and keep them oiled in the springs there. And beautiful, beautiful tool. And so with an auger bit, a cordless drill, or a bracing bit, and a vise, you can make absolutely anything.
And a Dremel. Dremel is a magical thing.
Fantastic. Oh, there's one other tool here, which basically means if you want to get into industrial making, which I can actually show a little bit more, a kind of a child's chair. I didn't actually do the weaving on the top of it, but beautifully done. And I didn't actually make this chair actually, but this would be the kind of thing that I would make, and in all other configurations, many types of different things. But in order to make this chair effectively on a kind of make more than one on a regular, you can make maybe 3 or 4, like that.
Yeah.
You would use a tool called this, and people often ask me when I was at the shows, they say, "What is that? What is that you're using there?" And this is actually called a Tenon Cutter.
I've seen you use this. It's really impressive.
Yes, they're not the kind of thing. They're definitely not cheap, but they come in all different sizes. And this one's a 1 inch. You can get that in a 2 inch. And honest to God, you could build a house with this thing, because you can actually build a structure, a framework. And so, like many joints, make a very strong structure. And they're invaluable.
It goes into a drill bit, it spins, and it
cuts the tenon.
Changes the diameter of sticks.
Yes, and it actually gives you the tenon, which is which fits into your inch hole in here. So with your auger bit, you can then drill in here, and they're very good tool. It's a Canadian tool, and but the possibilities are endless, and I use them for legs and all manner of things, because I was at one point making so much furniture that I used to use the draw knife. You can do it with a draw knife. You really don't need that. That's just if you want to make more things.
There's something very satisfying how that thing works as well.
Oh yes, just pencil sharpener.
It's just instant satisfaction.
Yes, and very well built.
Yeah.
Beautiful piece of equipment. My God. So, and there's a quiver here. That's another part of the deer hide that I made, which was actually supposed to be the drumstick hold for this. And there's a bag here. This is another thing I made the other day. Deer skins are so readily available, because we're sort of plagued with deers. Although I have none. I think they're great. And so this one here is I think this is a Sligo deer, and sometimes they came sort of ready cured or something, but they still have the hair on. And but a beautiful bag, because I can collect hazel in that. I can put my arrows in that. I can put my giddle in that, and then these leather wangs, we call them thongs. You can weave them up and you can make a strap, and it's a very comfortable bag. So I use that a lot for harvesting.
I love the lanyard type wove on it.
Yeah, it's 3 pieces. I think 3 pieces. Again, I found to do that on YouTube. There's, all of this stuff is there. It's just whether you're really interested, if it's the way you want to travel with things, because fantastic. Looking for wood, the right wood. It doesn't have to be ash. This was a bit of plum. Plum is excellent wood. I cut this when it was green and peeled it, which I shouldn't have done, and it split, but it's still incredibly strong, and that would be at 150 yards. But if you get plum, fantastic wood, or bay tree, fantastic wood. Damson, yeah. Any type of plum wood, and also yew tree, but you want the dead branch that comes off the side of a yew tree. And they've always got a knot in halfway up, so there's always a kind of a swelling on the top of a yew bow, because they never really grow in. If you're in a foreign climate, they grow longer. It used to come from Spain, a lot of the yew, but English yew has a knot in it. And but nonetheless, if it's a good seasoned branch off a yew tree, fantastic.
Francis, as many people can hear from your accent, You're not from Sligo. Well, I'm not from Sligo either, but there seems to be some kind of magnetic force pulling us to this part of the world. It's the strangest thing. At times I often think we're being brought here for a reason. Can you tell us about how you came to be in Sligo? I know you've been here for decades.
Yeah, I came to Sligo in the late 70s and I had my first job. I was only 15 and I worked at a farm rearing calves and cleaning out sheds with a grape, which is a kind of a fork, the Irish word for a fork with a long handle. And then I found it very difficult to come here in the first instance because the weather was terrible, but I kept coming back and eventually I came here and moved here in 1990 full time, and I've sort of kind of been here ever since. And but I have a kind of a background in labouring, and I used to do a kind of professional woodcutter, forestry for commercial timber. And probably when I always knew I had a kind of an underlying artistic sense to myself, but I was kind of rather doing a lot of things and I wasn't really being anything. And my intuition told me that I needed to express myself a lot more than just basically digging holes or cutting trees down. And I think Sligo is one of these particular places for me, which has a very dominant feminine power. I'd say that it's Maeve, the goddess, and that there's an abundance there, and that if you seek to express yourself truly, then abundance will come. And I think that all of the creativity that I have come to do has been because of Queen Maeve, I think, the actual goddess of Sligo. And I just keep on creating things constantly. And I love it because I feel like I'm actually being myself, and I don't do it for any reason other than the fact that I'm motivated to do it. And the wonderful people I've met throughout my life who have inspired me and taught me many things. I've learned to play Irish tunes on the guitar, which I would recommend to everybody. The beautiful, beautiful articulation of your fingers, and you learn so much. And I was very lucky to have a very good teacher, Jim Meehan. And
surrounded by amazing musicians here.
Yes, surrounded by amazing musicians, and so yeah, that's it. So I definitely thank the actual goddess of Sligo. I think a very powerful force, and I hope that I can keep on creating things and hopefully inspire other people to be more true to themselves and do what they really want to do.
Follow their dharma.
Yeah, being.
Well, this studio here on Chalk Ban, the White House, is the old grave digger's cottage.
It is.
It's been converted into a beautiful gallery, and you're not the only artist showing here. But I'm just struck by the significance of the landscape here. It's just in this tiny area, probably 100 yards either side of us. To my right, William Butler Yeats and his wife Georgina are buried, George, under the churchyard of Drumcliff. The legendary mystical poet and folklorist of Ireland, founded the Golden Dawn in Ireland. An incredible history with Aleister Crowley, with the Battle of Blythe Road in London and everything. To the other side, the 100 yards to the left of me, there is a significant high cross, Celtic high cross, a standing stone at the road. Across from that, the remains of a round tower, and in the field behind that, one of the most vicious battles of the Irish Middle Ages took place, the Battle of the Books, and St. Columkill was there, St. Columba. Now, what's amazing about that, it was a battle literally fighting over ownership of manuscripts, and it left such a bad impression. It actually devastated both Ireland and Scotland, the aftermath of this battle, that St. Columba basically had to kind of hide out in Iona. So just right where we're standing, the history is it's unbelievable. There's also a ley line I've traced through that round tower, through the standing stone, the high cross, the church spire, Yeats' grave, and across the Glencar Valley, right to the waterfall, which is again, the mystical place where Yeats' poem "The Stolen Child" takes place, about the child taken from the fairy. In fact, up on the mountains there, I was in a play with Jim Meehan, our mutual friend. It was an outdoor play of "The Land of the Heart's Desire," and I played the Catholic priest trying to lure the girl back from running away with a fairy. So, you know, this is it. You're epicenter of all this stuff here. I honestly believe that fellas like you, where did you come from, Sussex in England?
Yes.
And the fellas like you and people like me from Dublin and other people I know, it's that stuff that's brought us here. I really do believe that. Do you think there's something to that?
I think the land makes the people.
It's a magnet, though.
It's a powerful thing, the land, and it doesn't matter what you try to do, the land will eventually sculpt to you and you will become it. I mean, no matter how hard we try to not be it, we will become it. And it's what it's done for me, and I'm so happy that I've actually lived a life where I've actually found something where I am feeling that I'm actually vibrating at a frequency that reveals many things to me, many things. And and I'd like to say thank you for Tom O'Rourke, the owner of the gallery, and his son Neil O'Rourke, who have made all this possible. And really,
it's a beautiful space. Yeah.
It's a beautiful space, and it's a place for artists to be, and beautiful. Just say thank you for that. It's amazing.
Now, behind you on the wall is an image. This is from your previous artistic endeavour, but above you there is what I would consider your esoteric artwork. In terms of when you were making this, we were spending a lot of time hanging out together, and you were very much in a shamanic state, creating what you call sun discs. But I actually believe that you discovered the technology, a magical technology, that actually was able to see entities and capture them on camera. I really do believe that. Some of those things that you photographed with those sun discs were actual beings. I'm convinced of that. And
they're a frequency, they're a resonance, and they're able to translate a resonance into light, into form. And I'm still working on that project. It's very hard when you're not really a technician, and but at the same time I've discovered so many amazing images that come from the refraction of a sun disk, and the actual way that it's actually composed and built. It's very similar to rock art. And that a spiral, when you look at a spiral, which is, well, you know what a spiral is, but if you actually look at it in another dimension, it's a kind of a cone, which is like a pyramid. This particular one here I made with a piece of yew wood that somebody gave me, and it has a concave and a convex profile, and these are hand sculpted, but there is a kind of a mathematical equation that actually would bring my work into focus. And but as it is, so this is kind of an art piece, but many of the refractions that I acquire come from this curvature, which is actually a duality. It's a singularity, it's a duality, it's a triskel, and it's a quadruple, all incorporated in one. And I'm looking forward to, at some point in the future, being able to literally translate sound into light in its truest form. And that's a sun disc.
Yeah, remarkable. I love the way you've mounted that there. I remember like the work you went through to do that. You had to get contact a foundry in Belfast to cast it for you and everything.
Yeah, I actually cast them myself in Belfast.
But I remember we were in your old studio in where I am now in McCormick, and you were bouncing lights off it that day. And I was absolutely being amazed by what I was seeing. These light forms that you've captured here on the photograph. These light forms here were actually, they were coming to life. They were like living beings. So, which I really do believe that's some kind of Stargate holding in your hand. I really do believe that. Even though you didn't decide it for that reason, I think you did. I think you tapped into something there remarkable.
Very meditative. I think it could possibly have a healing possibility for the subconscious if we can't actually get a grasp of reality as we see it. That somebody who's in a coma or something like that could possibly actually relate to these forms in some way. It could re-access a part of our mind that suddenly gets dislodged and we can't find it. I love to think that they could actually, create some kind of healing process for people ultimately. But it's a work in progress, and I've been at it for many years. But it's moving there slowly but surely.
Well, Francis, thanks very much, and no doubt we'll be back here again in the future. I'm sure people are going to love this, and thanks very much again.
I say thank you very much, Thomas, as well, for giving me your time as well. It's, I'd like to give an example of the sound through an amplifier. So this is how it sounds.